Hello and welcome to the hard sell where the stick in the swill-bucket rattles back. As you may know and even understand, I am Ride or Die TSW OG for life. True honey bun ballers never die. TSW, Television Southwest, was my ITV provider in childhood, and it really is hard to articulate what it meant back then to have one channel specifically made in, by and for your local area. The concept was strangled to death through the 90s and died outright early this century, so at least two generations of adults now alive have never known the concept of ITV as an umbrella term for a network of community stations. It made the third channel more friendly than the ultimately unknowable BBC, because they were local all the time, as opposed to just occasionally after the news or during Nationwide. It enhanced the sense of community and local identity, but not in a partial or chauvinistic way. In a strange way, it made the country bigger. Less than 2 hours drive east and we were in another country with its own TV station. Almost incomprehensible now, of course. But hey, this isn't ITV in the face, available to watch right now for free at poplarfish.org.uk. No, this is the hard sell, where the stick in the swill-bucket rattles back, etc. That was just an unnecessarily long-winded and nostalgic way to introduce a Have a Break.
Have a break.
That happens to come from the TSW region. Specifically in 1988. Not sure exactly when, but definitely that year, and after an episode of Busman's Holiday, the game show that summed up Thatcher's Britain, in that it involved the last few employed people in Britain, who were expected to work in order to win a holiday at which they were expected to work. Your cheerful orange host is Julian Pettifer. This week we have some golf club secretaries, inevitably old white men, 3 adorable old ladies who are genealogists, and the nerdiest survival experts you ever saw in your entire life. Which has nothing to do with the adverts, obviously, but I thought I'd mention it because I think it's hilarious how they're presented at the start of part 2, backed with their own beat at the theme tune and everything.
Welcome back.
Yeah, genealogists. I initially misread that as gynecologists. But of course such a team would probably consist not of adorable old ladies, but of 3 faintly sinister men with brill-creamed widow's peaks. In fact, I doubt there was ever a team of that august profession on the show, particularly since the prize was a working holiday, which was filmed and shown on a later episode. For instance, this episode was won by the National Beard Corporation, i.e. the nerdy survivalists. And their prize is to join a comedy foreigner in pitching their beards against the Alps.
Johnny and James, I'm glad you won. I look forward to get you here up the Alps in Switzerland next week.
We'll see how they get on in bleary film footage next week, in a sort of Manpower Services Commission version of Blind Date. In the event of a team of gynecologists winning the game, the result may have been unbroadcastable, certainly before the watershed. Also unlikely to have featured proctologists, sex surrogates, obituarists, fluffers, and serial killers. But anyway, never mind about the show, and skipping over a couple of trailers, because I think I've padded this episode out quite enough already, here come the adverts. Here we see the greater spotted, especially in late 80s advertising, Jessie Birdsall, stalking the very, very slightly expressionist midnight streets in search of the elusive, exciting ATM.
You open an account at NatWest. What will you get?
Well, I'd say that was exciting enough, making the whole building light up like a fruit machine in a track mode, or more accurately, a pinball table. The advertisers appear to have conflated the two. There's no flippers and no ball, but there's plenty of spinning numbers. But the presence of the ooh on the soundtrack is a pretty big hint as to what they were actually going for. To be perfectly honest, I probably wouldn't have thought of pinball at all without the song. Fruit machines and arcade games would have leapt to mind first, and I think that's probably true of this advert's target demographic in general, because that demographic consisted of people only about 8 to 10 years older than I was, who were even more the arcade gaming generation than myself. By the sharp end of my childhood, home consoles were the centre of the universe. Not that pinball was dead by any means, but as a hot trend it belonged more to my parents' generation, or more instructively, that of the people who actually made the advert. Whatever, Jesse Birdsall's enjoying himself.
At NatWest, you get more branches than any other bank. You get branches that are open on Saturdays. You get free banking if you stay in credit. And you get more 24-hour cash machines than any other bank. When you want your money at your fingertips, press for action.
Press for action. It's a press-button world in the 1980s, and NatWest leaned right into it, especially when aiming at the youth market. Stephen King's Maximum Overdrive, only about 10,000 times better. Certainly spookier.
If an engine could choose its own oil,
yes, your vehicle demands Duckham's engine oil, and will use sinister powers of telepathy to get it if necessary. Or alien technology. Or strange electric mutations caused by a passing meteor. Or whatever the premise of that film was. Man, he was on a lot of cocaine and vodka at that time, wasn't he?
it couldn't choose a better oil than Duckham's Hypergrade.
Voiceover by Jack May, coming on as a sub from Valentine Dial, who'd done the previous campaign and soon afterwards died. Jack May was, of course, Igor to David Jason's Duckula, and therefore knows very well the price of using the wrong liquid in a ritual.
Blood.
The latest reincarnation did not run according to plan.
At least no one's using tomato ketchup in the engines.
The engine's choice.
The football's on telly tonight. I've got to work late.
The good news, bad news scenario. One of the oldest tropes in the book, used by everyone from half-assed satirists to Fleetway comics.
Made it! With 5 minutes to spare. But I'm starving. A 5-minute meal. One of the meal maker range from McCain. I'm over the moon. Spicy chicken, rice and chicken in a blend of spices. Peppers, onion, courgettes, sweet corn and peas. What a result!
The main unspoken good news here is that he's a lonely bachelor who doesn't have to worry about what anyone else might want to do, or eat, or watch him eating, or smell. Your man from Coronation Street here, presumably a Sunderland fan based on his voice and colours, has clearly never heard of Radio 4 Longwave, or better yet, just turning up the volume on the TV set so he can hear it while preparing something slightly more involved and much more edible.
Well, as you've probably already heard by now, fog has wiped out all tonight's football fixtures. So instead, indoor bowls live...
The best news. 5-minute meals are just one of the meal maker range from McCain.
Don't feel too sorry, though. I mean, that's Doctor Who, clearly amused at his suffering. It's probably a master in disguise or something.
The best news. 5-minute meals are just one of the meal maker range from McCain.
We were asked to play the new club in town, where the latest fashions are the rage, and the fans go mad when you're on stage. Because George is here.
It is the last night of the fair, and here is a man in a dumb pork pie hat. Yes, it's that piss lager again, Hofmeister, with their inexplicably highly popular Earth-signed douchebag mascot. To the sound of the Lieber Solar classic His Latest Flame, or just Stoller, really, since they've written new lyrics, George the Hofmeister Bear does his usual shtick of being a slightly boring dickhead and somehow garnering universal acclaim for it, while simultaneously hawking terrible beer. George must have kept Hofmeister afloat almost single-handed, or pawed, because once the ITC got them to knock it off in 1990, the beer almost immediately died a death, because it was shit. Plans are afoot to bring it back into the public consciousness, though. Well, the name at least, with a couple of guys having bought the dormant Hofmeister brand, and set some proper Bavarian brewers to make it to an authentic recipe for export only. They've even revived George as a realistic CGI monstrosity to try and attract investors.
Hey. Hey.
5, George.
Nice one.
Apparently the new stuff is quite nice. Can't be the same stuff then.
Well, it's cool and trendy club.
Was that Tony Blackburn? What's the point of having Tony Blackburn for all of a second in medium shot where you can't see him properly? Well, if it was, I'm sure it'll be sad to have missed the big climax where they hang George.
Well, the girls you've never seen, and we've all made a stench routines. But our favorite John's the biggest star.
Before your great-great-grandfather was born...
Hello, Android Tony Slattery. This is where the footlights has got you. TX ready for transmission and walking through a virtual world of graph paper and fog, nodding at strange, occasionally inexplicable figures from what a computer might believe the past had looked like, based solely on the spoken testimony of people too young to remember it.
Clerical Medical knew the future belongs to those who prepare for it.
I was in the sellotapes, for Christ's sake.
Over the years, Clerical Medical has helped thousands of families enjoy security, even when the future seemed quite uncertain. Today, Clerical Medical cares for over £3,000 million in investments, pensions, and life assurance.
It's for Clerical Medical, an investments group, and therefore on something of a hiding to nothing less than a year after Black Monday. But never mind. The thing is, for multiple reasons, you keep expecting another shoe to drop. The surrounding CGI datascape is one of them. It looks impossibly lame to modernise, of course. But then this sort of thing is fashionable, correct, and even futuristic and genuinely impressive at the time of broadcast. No matter that it looks exactly like a satire of itself in this day and age. And then of course there's the presence of the ironist comic Tony Slattery in the middle of it, which only enhances that feeling. But no, apparently, Clerical Medical felt that Slattery wasn't that recognisable to the contemporary audience yet, unless they were one of the 36 or so people who watched TX on a Saturday morning in 1985. That'll soon change, of course. Before long he'll be ubiquitous to the point that everyone in the country hates him for no apparent reason, and he eventually loses his mind.
Ask a financial advisor.
As for the metaphorical vaporwave green screen setting, that's just what financial adverts looked like in 1988. Computers, the future, money, whatever.
Clerical Medical, we remember the future.
Finally, an advert I wanted to use in the Hoovers episode of The Hard Sell, but forgot, I think. Well, here it is anyway, the Panasonic wall-to-wall cleaner. Something about this freaked the 5-year-old me out. Maybe it was the lack of a voiceover reading the words out. At the age of 5, I could more or less read, not to brag, but I couldn't really pass a sentence like this one. And the shortened version confused me even further. I don't know, maybe it was just the shock of learning that vacuum has 2 U's. Anyway, the soundtrack was very stylish at the time. Trilling synth flute, sampled ba-ba-ba vocals. All very upmarket lift music. Maybe that was what freaked me out. It is faintly alien. Note the sole brief glimpse of a human being we get.
The Panasonic wall-to-wall cleaner.
High heels, tights and a short, flimsy evening gown. Very practical for hoovering the house, I trust you'll agree. Now, the soundtrack, the model, the sultry voiceover, the faint whiff of avant-garde in general. You're being invited to think of this Hoover in aspirational terms, as something used by dinner party hosting sophisticates to clean around their chaise longues and grand pianos before having sandwiches on the settee. Something that will make your hovel more classy if you buy one, even if you just live in a concrete block with a door studded into it. You can't say or even suggest that out loud because it's just such bollocks, even by advertising standards. They can subtly, subliminally suggest it with the aesthetic of the advert itself.
The Panasonic wall-to-wall cleaner.
And that's it. No idea what became of our survivalists up an Alp or two. I presume they went up, looked around, maybe planted a flag, and then went down again. If they'd frozen to death or got eaten by wolves or something, it probably would have made the news, got the show cancelled, and still be remembered now alongside the death of Michael Lush. None of which happened. In fact, the show ran for another 5 years. Pettifer pieced out after this series and was replaced with latter-day Radio 2 crazy lady Sarah Kennedy. And then Elton Wellesby for one series in 1993, just to see if everyone still... Just to see if anyone still gave a shit about Busman's holiday by then. Which they did not. It's never been, nor threatened to be, seen again, except in repeats on Challenge TV and the like. A largely unremarkable show with an unremarkable history. That's the kind of quality subject matter and in-depth analysis you can expect from Bob the Fish Productions. Please leave. You just sat through a Bob the Fish production. Nice! If you haven't already, you absolutely must check out bobthefish.org.uk. Literally hundreds more videos not unlike that one, adding up to days worth of entertainment and all absolutely free. But if you're not a cold-hearted skinflint, you can always support us on Patreon. For as little as anything at all, you can make programs like the one you just watched possible in the first place, and become eligible for bonus material such as glimpses of the book I'm writing about the BBC, monthly riffings on random commercial breaks, the complete archives of the angry political satire magazine Two Sons, and even the odd very occasional bonus video essay unavailable anywhere else. If nothing else, you should prevent me from starving and or freezing to death in the foreseeable future, so that'd be nice. No pressure or anything. bobthefish.org.uk. You make it what it is.